And now let's take a quick look at the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurates new office of BJP Delhi unit, lauds India's GST and tax reforms. Surya Kumar Yadav denies BCCI role, says India's call to stop Mohsin Naqvi was taken on the ground. Prime Minister Modi's Operation Sindoor Expo celebrating India's Asia Cup victory goes viral, crosses 25 million views. Case registered against 25 social media users for spreading rumors about Karur stampede. India to build 2 cross-border rail links with Bhutan at a cost of 4,033 crores. India's index of industrial production growth slows to 4% in August 2025, dragged by consumer-facing sectors. Singer Zubeen Garg's death probe intensifies. Assam government requests MHA to invoke mutual legal assistance treaty with Singapore. Two dead, 22 injured as thousands protest against Pak government and POK. It was a rock show at the Oval Office designed to seduce Donald Trump. To regain favor in Washington, Prime Minister of Pakistan Shehbaz Sharif and Army Chief Field Marshal Asim Munir presented a collection of rare earth minerals to United States President Donald Trump. They showed those pieces of rocks. To the President Trump. A photograph released by White House shows Munir at the Oval Office at a time when Trump is seeking to curb China's dominance in the critical mineral supply chain. This is Pakistan's third desperate outreach to the United States in recent weeks. The visit comes as relations between Washington and Islamabad have improved after years of strain during the Biden era. Pakistan has been seeking American investments in its mineral sector. Pakistan Frontier Works Organization signed an MOU with US Strategic Metals to set up a polymetallic refinery in Pakistan. Pakistan's diplomatic outreach appears to be following a plan, acting as an intermediary among the various regional factions. Despite being a close Chinese ally in the region, Pakistan shows little hesitation in engaging with its arch rival, United States of America. Islamabad is strengthening the relationship with China, re-engaging the US, cultivating Saudi Arabia, warming up to Russia, bringing Turkiye into play and managing Afghanistan and Iran. Pakistan may currently be in a geopolitical sweet spot, but this might not last for too long. How long Beijing will tolerate Islamabad's flirtation with Washington remains uncertain. When the US feels the pressure of China's global rise, Pakistan's ability to play both sides will decline. If the US reverts to its rivalry with China, Pakistan could be forced to choose sides. Given Trump's with me or against me posture, the bonhomie may not last long. Sharif has previously claimed that the Pakistan's mineral reserves are worth trillions of dollars. He says foreign investments could help end its prolonged financial crisis. Most of these reserves, however, lie in Balochistan, where separatist groups oppose resource extraction by Pakistani and foreign companies. Also, China has made investments worth $70 billion in Pakistan, most of whom are in the restive Balochistan. Last time Pakistan claimed to have discovered a massive oil reserve, it turned out to be a hoax. In 2019, Imran Khan announced a possible massive find offshore. However, the claimed find of Asia's largest oil and gas reserve was short-lived, as the petroleum division later dismissed the claim. fact of the matter is, Pakistan is engaging in a way too many tactical and strategic games. At the same time, this could become difficult to sustain. And the question is, will Pakistan's outreach has a limit? On this, I am joined by Ambassador Veena Sikri and Professor Swaran Singh from Center for International Studies. And my question is straight and simple. Let me straight away go to Professor Swaran Singh first. Is there a limit to Pakistan's outreach? Because Field Marshal Asim Munir seems to be dialing a lot of numbers simultaneously. If they may not work in terms of real deal, but in terms of optics, it does have an effect, sir.
There is no doubt this sudden change of Pakistan being able to seduce, I'm intentionally using that word, United States into finding rare earth elements in Pakistan does rattle to some extent how India views that growing proximity. But I tried seriously to think about it after I saw that 8th of September, one private company and one company related to Pakistan military have signed an MOU talking about $500 million of investments over 3 phases. And I thought, what could make them do it? The only answer I could think of was that just like at some stage when the oil prices at international market went enough high and the water fracking technology became possible to use shale oil and America became an oil exporter. Similarly, the desperation of United States to deal with the Chinese absolute monopoly on rare earth minerals, both in terms of reserves and also in terms of refining, smelting and separating, they are willing to go to any extent, and that goes back to pandemic period, the Western countries realizing their excessive dependence on China. 30% plus manufacturing of the world happens in China, and since then they've been talking about friendshoring, onshoring and so on. So those concerns may make them desperate enough to start exploring rare earth elements which have not been found by any serious international geological surveys so far, though Pakistan has often flaunted the reserves between anywhere 8 to 50 trillion dollars, which is a joke. So that could perhaps be one way, but I assume even then 2 problems will arise. One, for any extensive 3-phase based exploitation of so-called rarely available rare earth materials in Pakistan, US will have to depend on enormous infrastructure built by the Chinese. And of course, deal with this insecurity issues in Pakistan. So I think much easier and commercially viable strategy for them will be start looking at recycling first at home, using all kinds of e-waste and extracting rare earth materials from there. And this is, to me, may not be impossible given the desperation of United States, but it's very improbable for me to become a possibility or a commercially viable reality.
Ambassador Sikri, is there a limit to the Pakistan's diplomatic outreach? That's question number 1. And the second thing is, China is so deeply invested in Balochistan. Is it really possible for Pakistan to make United States of America a stakeholder in a state where there is an independence movement raging, madam?
Well, I think we should understand why all this is happening. And I think there are 2 factors that we have to look at very carefully to see why suddenly, Pakistan has onboarded itself to a whole lot of regional cooperation programs. I think the first is that President Trump has taken a totally different view on China than his predecessors. Previously, and even in President Trump's own first term, the key issue was of America's rivalry with China and of the importance of India's partnership in containing China and in, making sure that America with India and other people has the upper hand. But President Trump in his second term has totally gone absolutely 180 degrees the other way. And he's now talking of accommodating China. He's talking of a big, beautiful deal with China. He's talking of G2, where America and China accommodate each other and the rest of the world falls in place. Now, if you take this theory on board, then I think that China is in the know of what US is doing with Pakistan, because that brings me to the second point, which is that I think that a lot of this change that was driven in America's approach towards Pakistan happened after May the 10th. On May the 10th, when India, as part of Operation Sindoor, launched its absolutely devastating missiles on the air bases and on the command and control center at Noor Khan, destroying a lot of these command and control centers and destroying aircraft, 2 or 3 things happened. First of all, there were American assets which were destroyed. These F-16 of the Americans, which was there, they were not supposed to be there. The F-16s are not supposed to be used against India, but they were being deployed. So this is a great problem that these American assets were destroyed. Secondly, the presence of Turkey. It is known that possibly in that command and control center which was destroyed at Noor Khan base, there would have been Turkish personnel there. We know that Turkey was actively helping Pakistan in this conflict, and that is why, isn't it a coincidence that on the same day?
Do you think that it'll boil down to a military base? Maybe they don't have a Bagram. Maybe they want something near Chakala. Is it going to boil down to that?
I think, it does. First of all, I think if you link this also with Pakistan's agreement with Saudi Arabia on the defense pact, this is really a means through which Saudi Arabia will finance the refurbishment of Pakistan's losses. All the losses that Pakistan has incurred in Operation Sindoor on May 10th are going to be financed by Saudi Arabia, and they will be purchased from America once again. All those F-16 aircraft or others, I don't know, maybe they're going to get F-35, who knows, they're going to be replaced, but they're going to be funded by Saudi Arabia. So, and also this is another reason, why is China so quiet? Why is China not reacting at all? It's showing no interest at all in what Pakistan is doing with America. But this is China's deepest friend, higher than the mountains, deeper than the seas. Why are they quiet? They know what's going on.
But but this picture also tells us a different story, Professor Swaran Singh. I don't recall the last time where the general and the Prime Minister would stand like this, holding hand in such an amicable situation, that too with the most powerful man, the President of the United States of America. Aren't they trying also to showcase a hybrid sort of a government, derive some sort of a legitimacy through these photo optics, that, well, this is the new model of the government where the general and the Prime Minister are going to stand together?
Karthik, I'm so happy you brought this up, because I have been feeling it a bit discomfiture about it, that now Prime Minister Sharif, whether he goes to Tianjin or now he goes to Washington DC, yes, he takes his field marshal along. I mean, this is not, I have not seen in international meetings any such template before. And if you link this to the reality that in about last 7-8 decades of Pakistan's history, nearly 35 years military has been directly in control of power, and for rest of the years possibly indirectly in control, and that makes us read this new template in a very different fashion. And Mr. Sikri mentioned, why is China silent, and Trump is doing that outreach to China. Remember, it is only one-sided love affair. It's Trump constantly outreaching to China. He called Xi Jinping twice, inviting him for his inauguration. President Xi Jinping never went there. Later, he raised 145% tariffs, then brought it down, and then gave 90 days pause. What have Chinese done? Chinese have launched investigation on United States chip dumping in China. They have refused to buy his favorite soya bean. Chinese are standing very straight as far as they are concerned. They are not responding to the outreach, and I don't think on any condition whatsoever Chinese can allow or will let it happen that there could be an American air base in Pakistan. They will find it extremely difficult to digest that kind of a reality. I'm sure they are doing whatever back channel diplomacy requires, and that is why you saw, as the Field Marshal and Prime Minister were sitting in White House, Defense Minister Khwaja Asim was giving interviews to European journalists saying this US relationship is only flirtation, our real friend is China. So there are signals happening that I feel are some kind of signals to China that this is not a serious relationship. But Trump, given by his push factors, his attempt to teach India a lesson. I mean, India has third largest known reserves of rare earth materials, nearly 6.9 million metric tons. I mean, if he needs really to approach a country where he wants to compete with China in rare earth materials, India is a clear choice. I mean, second largest is Brazil. He has difficult relations with Brazil.
But it brings me to my last question. If you look at the statement by the Secretary of Lutnik, to use a word like another sovereign country, we need to fix Switzerland, India, and Brazil before we, come to a common ground on trade deal. I think it's not only discourteous, but it also tells me that there's a lack of respect for my country.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. The kind of statements that have been being made by the Secretary of Commerce and by Peter Navarro are totally unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. But I think that is this combined with what I said the first time. I think there's also this element of pique on the part of President Trump, because India has so firmly denied any third-party mediation on the Indo-Pakistan issue, and has really, President Trump is going on even till today talking about how he solved or caused his mediation brought the India-Pakistan, thing to an end. But there is pique on this. There is pique on this. But to say that it's going to be expressed in this fashion is really carrying it very, very far. And I think that Professor Swaramsingh is right that China has not been responding to the G2 proposal that President Trump is putting before them all the time. But there's no knowing whether China is driving a hard bargain, because let's not forget that originally it was China which put forward the G2 proposal when President Barack Obama was in power, and President Barack Obama, the Democrats, were very much in favor or tending towards accepting the G2 formula. That was originally the Chinese proposal, which now President Trump has taken on board. So I do think that we have to bide our time. We have had a very correct response. We've called all this tariffs and stuff unreasonable, unfair, and unjustified. We have maintained our stand on no third-party mediation. We have to bide our time. It will happen. But I think in the meanwhile, we can continue our talks on it will continue all the various other items with America, like the joint exercises, the ICT meetings, the 2+2 meeting, that will continue. But it's on these issues where our very strong position of multi-alignment is being impacted. We have to express ourselves unequivocally.
But very quickly, madam, very quickly, your comments on Pahalgam should have unsettled Asim Munir's career trajectory, but now it looks like that he's deeply invested in Pakistan as the player, with others being side player. Very quickly, why has this happened? We thought that this might unsettle him, but he has become stronger in the domestic politics of Pakistan.
Yes, the narrative of Pakistan having won caused him to very deliberately take on the title of Field Marshal. That's one thing he did for himself. Secondly, I think whether it is because of pique, it is immediately after May 10th and subsequent events when India was absolutely not willing to accept the question of US mediation, that we had the invitation going out to Asim Munir to come to the White House for lunch. And again, President Trump trying to invite our Prime Minister, who was then in Canada at the time, and inviting him to come and join. So these efforts of America at mediation have been very strong, but we have resisted them. And as a result, the State Department has put out a statement saying that they accept India's position of no mediation on India-Pakistan. So I think we have maintained our position very correctly. We have won definitely a lot of good points on that. But now we have to maintain our position. Okay.
And lastly, Professor Swaramsingh, are we going to see a sort of a longer time span of our relationship with Asim Munir, the way India had to deal with Musharraf? What's your assessment? Very quickly.
My assessment is very clear. It is promotion of Asim Munir to Field Marshal which has justified their victory rather than other way around. And he is likely to stay for a longer period of time. Whether he's going to directly take over power, I have doubts on that, because army lately in last 2 to 3 decades have showcased they prefer to stay behind the doors and let politicians be on the front as a facade. So he may not directly take over power, but he's likely to stay as a very influential.
Which means that the dilemma, sir, is that ultimately we'll have to end up doing business with Asim Munir, because he is completely made a bonsai out of their democratic system and very handsomely showcased it in the Oval Office, telling the world that who is calling the shots. That's the irony of the situation. But thank you for putting the entire meeting of Asim Munir and Shehbaz Sharif in perspective, in context of President Trump, that there is a limit to the diplomacy of Pakistan. they can't stretch it far, because ultimately the investment between America and India goes far deeper than what Pakistan has with America. So this was on point 1. Don't go away, because on the on point 2 we will talk about the return of Parali nightmare, but after a short break.
Alakazam fish disappeared. Munir.
Smooth, silent, seamless.